Like a grand and miraculous spaceship, our planet has sailed through the universe of time.
Like a grand and miraculous spaceship.
Grand and miraculous.
Grand and miraculous.
I think with the Muppets, there's sort of an innocence to them, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that appeals to the child in everybody. Because I think everybody is a child in everybody, still.
Well, we all want to build a time machine, Doc. So when you enter Disneyland, you're entering a time machine.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Well, hello, everybody. Here I am. It's John, Spaceship Ears, your host of Grand and Miraculous. I hope you're doing fantastic. This is a very special episode. This is not going to follow our usual format. We actually, a whole bunch of us just flew into Florida for this wonderful event called RetroMagic, and I thought I'd spend a few minutes talking to you about it and covering what we learned and some stories and things like that. We met some amazing people, and I'd be honored and excited to share it with you. But something else really, really exciting happened over the weekend. Before the weekend, I think this channel was hovering around 200, 210 subscribers. I log in today, there are 444 subscribers. So I want to personally thank all the folks who pitched this channel during the weekend. I know Josh was live talking about us. I know Magic Adventures was talking about us. I am so grateful for all of you for supporting what we do here. It means a lot to me. I personally learned a lot from some very influential people this weekend that I'll try to apply to this channel, and we'll talk about that as time goes on. But for now, I want to wish a very warm welcome to everybody who's new to this channel. I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoy a little bit of it. In case you're brand new, let me pop up our mission statement. Our mission statement is to unveil the magic behind theme park attractions, exploring their creators, their immersive worlds, and the moments that keep us coming back, with your voice shaping the journey. And there's no better way of doing that than at RetroMagic. So I'm so excited to talk about this event. If you haven't heard about it before, maybe you'll be inspired to attend it in the future, and or certainly to support the wonderful people at the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. Let me just pop into chat. I saw a whole bunch of friends who are here. So Beaker and Honeydew, hello. Thanks for supporting us as always. Pirate Queen Twish, thank you for being here. Mr. Lamont Gray is a huge supporter. You've been here from the very beginning, and I'm so grateful. Dave's Disney Dreams has been a big backer. How are you doing, Dave? Hope you're doing great. Let's see. Dave Stragan is here. Hey, Dave, also a big supporter of our channel. You've given me lots of great advice, and I appreciate it. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for you. I want to say hi to Miss Kay Bell's in the house. Hello, Kay. She's my stepmom, married to the illustrious Mr. John DeCure Jr. Fire Dragon 57 is in the house. Hello, Fire Dragon. Karen Cook is here. It was great to see you the other night. Miss Udalali Lane. We'll talk about Kate in a little bit. Let's see. Jason Thibodeau is in the house. Hey, Jason. Hope you and Gloria are doing great. Todd McCartney is in the house. Hey, Todd. Wonderful to see you here. We'll talk about Todd in a few minutes. Thanks for being here. It means a lot. Mr. John DeCure, my father. Thank you for being here and for supporting me here. I think that's most of the folks. If I haven't caught everybody, then I will catch you eventually. And yeah, so like I mentioned, tonight's going to be a very unusual episode. I do not have a PowerPoint deck. I do not have links to go vote. Of course, I'd encourage you to go to grandmiraculous.com and to go vote on some of the previous attractions and to watch some of the previous streams. But tonight, we're just going to take it easy. I'm going to share some photos that I took over the weekend and express to you how meaningful this organization is and why what they do means so much to us in the Disney fan community. So I hope, if nothing else, you come away from this just learning a little bit more about the love and effort that these folks put into this event and why we should continue supporting them. So first and foremost, let me explain a little bit about, let me throw this up here. Let me explain a little bit about what this event is. So this event is a brainchild of a 501c3 organization, charitable organization called the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. Todd, who happens to be in chat, is the president of this organization, and he and 3 other fantastic quality people I can't praise enough run this organization. If you've been tuning in from episode 1, you know that I pitch this organization at the beginning of each episode. And I say, hey, if you like what we're doing here, don't go support me. Please throw a few bucks their way. They're doing fantastic work through the Retro WDW website, through the Retro WDW podcast, and of course through Keystone events like this, which is RetroMagic. In general, they have an event roughly every 2 years. The first one I attended was back in 2023 when my father, John DeCure Jr., he's in the chat, hey Dad, he was invited to talk about Spaceship Earth because the theme of RetroMagic 2023 was Epcot all up. So it was a magnificent experience. I had such a great time. So I told myself, you know, by hook or by crook, I need to get to RetroMagic again this year. Dad's going through some medical stuff, so I didn't grab Dad, but I hope, and we'll probably talk about this later, I hope to grab him next time. So let me tell you a little bit about the organization. So Lake Buena Vista Historical Society is led by 4 folks. Todd McCartney, who's in chat right now. Hey, Todd. Mr. Brian Miles, a good friend, a dear friend, and someone who's deeply, deeply supportive of the organization. Mr. JT Kuzior. JT's fantastic guy. In fact, you may have seen some posts and some comments from Josh over at Resort TV 1. Well, JT invited Josh to come on over and check it out. And I'm so grateful to JT for doing that because he really, I think, shown a spotlight on this great event. Mr. Hal Bowards is the 4th and not final member of this fantastic organization by any means. Hal was one of the key guys who interviewed my father back in 2023. And he and the other 3 folks here nailed it out of the park. So I can't highly recommend that you get involved with this organization and or come to the event. I promise this episode is not a commercial. We have lots of cool content to talk about. This is a program. Whoa, I have a background up. This is a program they were giving us. And the program is fantastic because they actually fill it with all kinds of wonderful archival commercials, you know, Kodak disc cameras and things like that. So I'll be referring to that through the course of my pictures. They also do something really cool to their attendees. They make all kinds of interesting, I guess you can call them keepsakes. Here's a collection of Puffy stickers. These were actually given out in 2023, and they were given out again to this year's attendees. You all remember Puffy stickers, of course. Well, these can include the ones that are, here, let me make myself big so you can see them. Oh, sorry for the virtual camera there. These are kind of icons from Epcot's past, if you remember any of these. There's Buzzy, and of course, the dude from Maelstrom. Everybody loved Puffy stickers, so that's a great keepsake. Of course, they also gave a fanny pack. We all remember fanny packs. So this was a wonderful little, keepsake that they gave out. And here's a piece de resistance, if I may say. This looks like, this looks like a cassette tape. Sorry for my virtual camera. You remember the cassette tapes we all bought in places like, back in the 80s and 90s, we all bought music on cassette tape. They even have the spine that's mastered perfectly. But something incredible is in here. At first, a lot of people thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to need a tape cassette recorder. Mine's buried in the attic and I don't know where it is. Well, they did something amazing here. What they did was, this is not a real cassette tape. This is actually a USB drive. So on this USB drive is a collection of all kinds of audios, all their podcasts, all kinds of content from the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society and Retro WDW over the years. And what a great keepsake merchandise. I'm so grateful to these guys. So let me get back to what we're here to talk about. Ooh, okay. So this was the entrance sign. It was held this year at the Coronado Springs Resort. And it was a great event space because there was food nearby. The hotel was just steps away. And it was a great place to host it. This was the stage as we all entered in, and you could see the 4 or 5 chairs for the speakers. Here's a wonderful picture we took right at the outset. I'm here on the far left. Our friend Kate Udalali Lane is on the far right. And here in the middle, we have 2 wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. The guy in the middle right is Tom Morris, and we'll talk more about Tom Morris as time goes on. The guy on the middle left here is Mr. Tim Delaney. And Tim, he was so effusive with love. He and I had some wonderful conversations about the work my father did and some other stories behind the scenes, which I'll share some other time. Retro WDW's in the house. Thank you guys for being here. It means a lot. And I hope that I do a good job trying to portray the importance of what you're doing, because it's really... It's completely aligned with what we're doing here on this channel. Here's a view of the Coronado. If you haven't been there, it's actually really nice. I hadn't been there in decades, and the new tower is fantastic. The resort, actually, I was telling someone, the resort actually kind of slips your mind from time to time when you think about where to stay on property. It's a great resort, and the next time you're planning a trip there, don't rule out the Coronado. It's a great little resort. Well, I shouldn't say little. It's a huge resort, but you get my point. More pictures of the Coronado. This was a bridge that I hadn't seen before, so it connects the 2 ends of the property much better. And a lovely little picture of a fountain. And I just showed you this. This was the program that they gave us. So this was the beginning of the show. And there is Mr. Todd kicking it off. And the 4 gentlemen I just referred to. You guys are my heroes. I'm so grateful for what you did. And they were here to kick off the show in fine fashion. So in the very beginning, what happened was they invited historian Ted Linhart up. Now, Ted's a fascinating guy because he maintains a huge collection of historical artifacts and papers and instruction books, standard operating procedures for various rides and things like that. And the best part is he brings these artifacts to the show. So not only can you take a look at them, you can actually hold them in your hand, and you can hold the original standard operating procedure for the Hall of American Adventure, for example, and various things like that. Here up on the screen, you can see some things that he highlighted. This was the 1982 sales brochure when they were trying to sell monorail as actual public transit, not just for the theme parks. And for anybody who's a project planner, you might recognize the picture on the right. There's a Gantt chart, and that's a 69 production schedule for Disney World monorail. This is the kind of stuff that Ted is an expert at, and I hope we can find him online and invite him here because he has some amazing stories to tell. More great pictures, folder from Archive of David Jones, who produced the end films of Horizon, and yeah, great stuff. And next we had a wonderful panel on the Main Street Penny Arcade, and historian Fox Nolte was on stage, and arcade expert Todd Tuckey was there. You may recognize Todd Tuckey's last name. He's Tammy Tuckey's father. And Tammy Tuckey, if you haven't heard of her, we'll talk about her in a bit too, but she's a phenomenal podcaster, singer, artist, actor. I don't have enough great words for Tammy. This was a great panel because they actually talked about the history of the penny arcade on Main Street. And what was even better is they went into great detail about each of the mechanisms that they had on display in the arcade. And they talked about the history. They talked about the various machines in the penny arcade and how they worked. Let me go back one second. And what was really cool was that Todd Tuckey owns a entertainment/amusement company specializing in things like this. So, for example, he had a video up on stage where he actually had a real pinball arcade, and he showed all of the relays and all of the wires and all of the stuff in back that made these things work. What was interesting to me were the stories that they told trying to bring some of these attractions to the Magic Kingdom. As you can imagine, it's a much different story in an arcade where, the occasional customer throws in a quarter and plays with the machinery versus having it in the Magic Kingdom where it's being used all day, every day. So they had to make a few adjustments, including replacing some of those complicated relays and systems like that with ICs, with computer chips instead. You'll learn all about this when the videos go online. One thing I neglected to say is that thank you guys, the Retro WDW guys put all of these talks online. I'd highly, highly encourage you to go watch them. Go watch the old ones. The ones from 2023 are all online, and the ones before that too. Just hours and hours and hours of great content. So please do support them. Next up, we had Chris Runco. Chris Runco talked about his career, and he created all kinds of interesting things like robots on Tomorrowland and things like that. Let me tell you a little bit about Tom, if I can find his bio here. Sorry, Chris, not Tom. Where is it? I can't find it. But anyway, the important thing to note is that Chris Runco was an amazing guy. He was involved in so many different things. And you can see here are some of the artifacts and hats that he had on display. Chris actually talked about, here's a great model that he showed of Big Thunder from the old days. You can see a lot of the great detail. I just want to make a comment. There is a certain art and a mystique about model making that I think is lost today. I'll show a picture later of a pretty fascinating model that we showed. And I think there's a certain art and a certain aspect of how you come up with these ideas. And they really manifest well in a 3D physical model. Everything's digital these days. You can create some amazing stuff with AI and throw it in a blender and make it 3D and spin it around. That's all great. But there's something tangible to actually having a real 3D model there. And to see some of those original models is just fantastic. Here's Chris's bio. Let me do him proper justice. Chris Runco has worked in the theme park industry for over 35 years. He began as a portrait artist on Main Street in Disneyland and later joined Walt Disney Imagineering as a model builder. Over the years, he has led show design teams on a multitude of projects in the U.S. and overseas, including the Typhoon Lagoon Water Park in Florida, Grizzly River Run Raft Ride in Tomorrowland, and Monsters, Inc. Ride and Seek attraction in Tokyo. He's also worked on several films as a concept designer, as well as designed traveling music concerts. He is currently a concept designer and art director for WDI. He has designed everything that goes into a theme park, from major attractions to penny press machines that we all love. He is also an award-winning editorial cartoonist and enjoys plein air watercolor painting in his free time. One of the reasons I'm delving so much into the biographies of these amazing people is that's what our show is all about. You all know, those of you who are new to the show don't know this, but I lead off every single episode talking about each Imagineer. Well, not every single one, but the key ones who worked on that attraction and poured their blood, sweat, and tears into it. I don't think they get enough recognition, and I want everybody to come away from this show with kind of a mental note card, a pack of cards in their head about who these Imagineers were, so that the next time you can go to a ride, you can appreciate the artist behind the painting, so to speak. And that's really key and important to me. So there's Chris. I should have had him up while I read his bio. So I'm really grateful that Chris showed up. Oh, here we go. So here is Rex. You guys know Rex from Star Tours. And you could see slightly younger version of the Imagineers on stage talking about how they created these wonderful robots. Here's a final version of Rex on Star Tours. Here's a Queen Mary project Chris worked on. This is the original hangar for the Spruce Goose. Those of you who remember the Spruce Goose know that it was in a big dome. Well, this was an original concept that was created for the Spruce Goose. Okay, next up, we had a wonderful talk, including people like Kim Murphy, and Kim actually came on stage to talk about Typhoon Lagoon. Now, Kim is an absolute legend. Those of you may know that I posted a picture of myself with Kim, and he was an absolute delight. I am so happy that he was able to get on stage. Those of you who don't know Kim Murphy, let me just recite a few bullet points. He has an amazing life working to bring animals and humans closer together in themed environments. At SeaWorld for almost 10 years as an assistant curator, corporate curator. Then he worked at Marineland of the Pacific, if anyone remembers that. He was a consultant at WED from 76 to 78. And from 78 to 89, he worked at Walt Disney Imagineering. And he was a director of The Living Seas, director of show quality assurance, and the executive show producer of Typhoon Lagoon. In 1989 to 2007, he was the executive show director in the Second Gate at SoCal, vice president for corporate environmental policy, and the senior vice president for corporate environmental policy. If you think anything about Kim Murphy, think about two things: Typhoon Lagoon and The Living Seas. He was absolutely instrumental in both of those. So Chris and Kim were on stage talking about their adventures in Typhoon Lagoon, and you could see here a very early picture of Typhoon Lagoon in the shot. It was very emotional seeing Kim and Chris up on stage. There were multiple emotional moments as these wonderful Imagineers, who some of them, they stay in touch, of course, but they haven't been on stage to receive this kind of attention and admiration and appreciation for many, many years. Many of them teared up, and rightfully so. Okay, then after lunch, we had a wonderful panel talking about opening day. And a lot of these people on stage were involved in opening day festivities, including Tom Nabby. You've probably seen Tom on other streams before. Steve Baker was there, Dr. Gloria Hardy, Jim Cat. I think Jim wasn't there this time, but I could be wrong. No, Jim was there. Martin was there. Anyway, doesn't matter. What we're going to talk about is opening day festivities. What was great was that they actually brought a lot of the original memorabilia from opening day. For example, here's a newsletter from the Walt Disney World Eyes and Ears magazine from October 1971. And there's a memo at the bottom. It's probably too small to see, but it says, "To this cast, on the eve of Walt Disney World's opening day, may I thank all of you for your spirit, your cooperation, and the fine job all of you have done in getting ready for our opening. Years of planning and long hours of work have brought about this historic moment. It will be an experience none of us will forget. At this time, I think it is appropriate that we remember Walt's comment. You can dream, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality. You, the cast, are responsible for making Walt's dream come true, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Roy O. Disney, chairman of the board." So they brought lots of great stories, lots of artifacts, and I can't wait for you to check out their video. I want to pop over to chat and say hi to some folks. Miss Bitritz is in the house. Hello, Bitritz. Hope you're doing great. Mr. David T is in the house. Hello, friend. Alyssa and Neil, I'm so happy that we were able to see you this weekend. That was an absolute privilege to see you again. Todd's dropping some knowledge in the chat. Thank you. Miss Tammy Delaney is in the house. Hello. Let's see who else is here. Karen Cook is in here. I think it's it for now. If I miss you, please say hi. I'll grab you eventually. Oh, there's Jim McCaskill. So let me tell you a little bit about Jim. A lot of the folks on stage were involved in the very, very early days. And the great thing about some of these some of these speakers is that you don't realize some of their backstories. Jim was actually a U.S. Army Vietnam veteran, and he applied to be one of the original Walt Disney World cast members in the summer of '71, and he was hired as the first electronics trainee working in audio animatronics. He became a master technician and was promoted into electrical engineering as a designer to work in the design build of Epcot Center. There's a lot of other biography that I don't have time to recite, but please, I will cover Jim at some point, I promise, and we'll learn more about this amazing man. The other guy on stage that I didn't properly recognize was Mr. Tom Nabby. Those of you probably know Tom very well. He was hired by Walt Disney to portray Tom Sawyer on the Tom Sawyer Island in Disneyland. So he has had a very illustrative career. If I'm not mistaken, he's a Disney legend too. And he has a wonderful book you should go visit and go check out, because they had some wonderful stories in it and things like that. Tom was gracious enough to sign books off to the side, and it was a great event. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. This was cool. They acknowledged a gentleman up here, Martin McCarthy, and he was in charge of the merchandising of the Magic Kingdom. And what was great was that we got lots of inside stories about various things for sale on the park. Of course, all of you watch YouTube streams of the parks, and you love to go into shops and take a look at all the merch and things like that. There were some great questions about, do people actually buy cuckoo clocks at the Magic Kingdom and take them home? And the answer is yes, they do, in fact. Finally, not finally, but next up on stage is the amazing Miss Tammy Tuckey. Those of you who don't know Tammy should know Tammy. She's an amazing artist, singer, podcaster, and so forth. Let me just read a little bit. She's actually an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, actress, podcaster, and singer. And she's hosted, edited, and produced the Tiara Talk show from 2011. And then she transitioned into the Tammy Tuckey show. So it was a kind of funny anecdote. Neil, I hope you don't mind that I mentioned this, but Neil sometimes puts random Disney music up on his Amazon Echo or Alexa or something. And a lot of it was from Tammy. And so when Neil recognized Tammy in the crowd, he went completely bonkers, because Neil, as you know, everybody in our community knows, he's an amazing artist, and he plays at Give Kids a World on trumpet. So that was an amazing moment when the two of them got to meet. The gentleman on the left is Paul Austerhout, and Paul's an amazing guy too. The purpose of this panel was to go talk about the 1990s a little bit. So they talked about Muppet Vision. They talked about Tomorrowland. They talked about the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management, things like that. And Paul actually brought the original 3D, the thing that Gonzo sticks out at the beginning of the show. So lots of people got to take pictures with it. This was a neat little slide that he showed. I don't want to read the whole thing, but it was talking about how Tomorrowland, there was some talk about whether Tomorrowland should remain the name in the 1990s, because they were revisiting everything. They were doing a major remodel. And as you could see here, it says, once the new design was defined, it was suggested that perhaps Tomorrowland be given a new name. Those of you who know Disneyland Paris know Discoveryland was chosen over there. But they kind of noodled over this a little bit. After creating a long list of new name proposals, however, the team seemed to favor the original. After all, this was not a brand new land, but rather a new take on a long established beloved land. So this was a great little memo. As you can see, it was sent to Paul and some other folks, including Marty and Bob Weiss. And that was a wonderful little trip through 1990s. Again, I'm flying through these. I would highly recommend in a few months, when the full videos come up, that you go watch them all. They're fantastic. This gentleman is another legend, Mr. Russell Brower. And Russell is a 3-time Emmy-winning composer, sound designer. And he was up on stage to talk about different sound environments and different type of compositions that he helped create. Like you all know about the Interventions aerial loop. I'm sure all of you have heard that music. You've probably listened to it on YouTube so many times as you drift asleep. This is a man who did all of that stuff. And it was I'm actually really, really grateful to all of the Retro WDW guys, not only for this event, but it might be trivial to think about the artists primarily because we tend to be visual people. However, I want to stress the music and the sound environments are just as important to creating an immersive world as anything you see with your eyeballs. I think John Hench had a famous quote that says, "You can't whistle the architecture," right? So the music is absolutely critical. Let me read a little bit about Russell. He's a 3-time Emmy Award winner and a BAFTA-nominated composer, audio and musical director and conductor. For over a decade, he was a senior director of audio and lead composer at, some of you or your kids may know this, Blizzard. And he worked on the music of World of Warcraft, Diablo 3, StarCraft 2, and so forth. He served as principal media designer and music director at Imagineering, creator at theme parks worldwide. It goes on and on. He has an amazing career. And I was just tickled that some of our friends who are more musically inclined, like Josh, got to meet Russell, and they had some wonderful talks behind the scenes. Our friend Jimmy. This is Mr. Jimmy Mulligan. I'm actually old friends with Jimmy. He and I hooked up at Seattle Comic-Con earlier this year. For those of you who don't know, Jimmy is a absolutely phenomenal artist. There's no better way of saying it. Some of his work that you'll see, in fact, all of his work that you'll see, it just will make your head explode. It's so gorgeous. So I wanted to highlight this picture because Jimmy, in recognition of the Living Sea segment at this RetroMagic, Jimmy actually painted an original concept. And I'll talk about this more in a bit, but this is a wonderful little portrait of the living seas. You can see Poseidon/Triton, or some talk about who that is, off in the background with the actual Living Seas mural, you may remember, and some people drifting off into some sea cabs. This was a beautiful piece of art, and it was auctioned off for a very high price. I won't mention it now, but I'm very happy that that amount of money went to the Historical Society. And Jimmy's a fantastic guy. Jimmy, if you're hearing this, love you, man. You're great. Okay, finally, we have to top off day one. We had some original cast members join the stage, and these cast members were part of Tapestry of Nations, if you remember that wonderful parade in Epcot. And what was great was that Tammy joined them on stage, and they talked about some of their original experiences. I should mention their names: William Campbell, Lillian Reyes, and Amy Kesman. What was great about it was they talked about how they meshed with their characters, how their characters became real through what they did, and it was a great insight to some of the behind-the-scenes aspects to how this show actually worked. I hope those of you are in chat remember Tapestry of Nations. If you do, throw something in chat so you can share your memories with everybody. Now, what was really mind-blowing was that at the end of their talk, they actually brought in a full-size character from Tapestry of Nations. As you may remember, there were a number of different characters wandering around Epcot, and this character was not original, but it was a recreation, but it was still magnificent, and it brought a lot of tears to people's eyes. So they had, Tammy was singing the Tapestry of Nations song, and it was just great to see this kind of emotional, resonant climax to the first day. And you could see this thing is huge. This is not just a small model. This was a huge model with multiple people carrying it around. This is a picture I wanted to show. Me and Russell, who I just talked about, and our friend Kate. Kate gave me permission to show these. I am not going to show other pictures I took of other people because I don't have their permission, but I got Kate's permission. So we had lots of fun meeting Imagineers and taking pictures with everybody in chat. Here's a quick close-up of the great model that they had along with the original cast members. Okay, at the end of day one, after dinner, they had the famous movie night that Retro WDW often puts on their YouTube channel. Now, this movie night was great because they showed all kinds of archival footage from early days in the Magic Kingdom They focused a lot on some people milling around river country, and they showed some pictures of some young kids at the time, and this is a wonderful experience. If you haven't seen Retro WDW's movie night, these guys put it on once every few months. If I get wind of the time they do it next, please tune in. It's a lot of fun. They show some amazing archival footage, and these guys are committed to restoring this footage and bringing it up to date, upscaling it using AI and whatnot, and it just looks phenomenal. You wouldn't know that it was filmed back 50 years ago. I should mention, up on the table with our four hosts, Mr. Tom Morris on the right, and of course the illustrative Mr. Tony Baxter. We'll talk about Tony in a bit. Okay, day 2. So, had a wonderful breakfast, and the first talk on day 2 was a talk on Lake Buena Vista. Of course, you all remember Lake Buena Vista as the original spot where Disney Springs is now. Of course, before Disney Springs, part of it was downtown Disney and the marketplace and things like that. But originally, it was Lake Buena Vista, and they showed lots of great history on the host community. I should mention a few folks I didn't mention. There were 2 historians on stage, Haston Zylstra and Fox Nolte. Fox actually has a few books out for sale, so I highly recommend you look her up too. They had some wonderful pictures back from the original Lake Buena Vista community, including all kinds of pictures of shops and original stores and things like that. Here's a picture that you may recall. This is the Empress Lily, and they talked about how the Empress Lily was constructed. Some of you may not know, but the Empress Lily doesn't actually float. It's actually built on land. So I'm sorry to break your illusion, but the Empress Lily is solidly on land, or paddlefish, as it's called now. And then the man himself. After a short break, we had a segment with Mr. Tony Baxter, our dear friend, our family friend, and just a dear, dear human being. I can't say enough about Tony. In the rare event that you don't know who Tony is, I have 2 pages here of biographical material. I cannot read it all. Go read up on who Tony is. But in case you don't know, it's impossible to put all of his legendary accomplishments into one paragraph. Of course, he created Big Thunder Mountain, Indiana Jones Adventure, the original Journey into Imagination Pavilion. He worked on Star Tours. He worked, of course, on Splash Mountain, bringing that to life. It's almost a who's who of attractions. And if there is if there's any attraction that you remember very fondly, chances are that Tony had a hand in it. There was a nice ending in his bio in the booklet that I'd like to read. Of course, you know that Tony retired in 2013, and there was a quote at the end, and he says, I'd like to think that's one of the things I learned working at Disneyland," he once said, "the emotional side of the business. It's been my edge as I transitioned into being professionally engaged to develop these things." And of course, Tony was inducted as a Disney legend in 2013. So, Tony was up on stage, and he was answering questions submitted from the audience. I won't spoil this. I'll save it for when the guys put the video up online. But I do want to highlight there was one phenomenal question that one intrepid person asked, and that was how he felt about the transition over the years from the original Journey into Imagination into the newer incarnations, and his thoughts on it. And I won't spoil it. I'll save it for the video. But it was a very good answer. It was diplomatic, but it was also direct. And I look forward to talking more about that when the video goes up. So there's another picture of Tony. Okay. So next we started talking about the living seas, and we brought Kim Murphy up on stage again. Before that, I need to take a few minutes and talk to you about what Tony revealed about the original Living Seas Pavilion. Most of you think the Living Seas Pavilion, or as the current incarnation goes, is the seas with Nemo's and friends. Most of you remember the original incarnation of the Living Seas with the hydrolators, which are phenomenal. We'll talk about that. Seabase Alpha, things like that. Well, believe it or not, that was not the original incarnation and the original thought process or concept of what the living seas would be. And that came from the mind of Mr. Tony Baxter. Tony engaged us and told us a fantastic story of the original concept of the living seas. Those of you who remember entering the pavilion remember a movie almost in circle vision. Well, you know, it rained and it rained and it rained. We all remember that. Well, in the beginning, there would be this ginormous figure of Triton, or Poseidon, as they called it at the time, basically saying, hey, look at what you've done to my domain, my ocean. And he would strike a big Triton into the ground, and suddenly the doors would open, and you would be led into this amazing coral reef. And inside the coral reef would be a collection of moving cars, kind of like an omnimover system on the Haunted Mansion. And these cars were shaped like pearls deep in the sea. And you would get on the pearls, and you would go through all kinds of different areas in the pavilion, from the coral to deep underground, well, not underground, but deep undersea, where you have all kinds of the foreign, strange looking fish that we all know and love. And they even included a section that was polluted with litter to kind of remind us of what humanity had done to this environment. And finally, we would be brought up through a vortex back to higher waters, and it would end on an amazing coda and lead you into the aquarium. Everybody in this, I can attest that everybody in the audience was completely silent, and our jaws were dropping. I had told someone that, you know, if they had actually implemented this pavilion in that way, probably it would still have an hour wait to this day, is my guess. It was a phenomenal idea. And I can't wait for you to see the video when it goes live, so you can hear Tony talking about it. Of course, things being things, some of our ideas don't land as they were originally conceived for various reasons, most of all including budget, things like that. So they brought on Kim Murphy and Tim Delaney and some other folks to talk about how they actually brought the living seas to life, including, you know, our beloved hydrolators that Kim was responsible for and things like that. There was a very emotional moment I need to point out. Mr. Tim Delaney, who I talked about earlier, I don't know if I read his bio. Let me read Tim's bio real quick. Tim Delaney graduated with honors from Art Center College of Design in 1972, achieving a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Design. 4 years after graduation, Tim began his 34-year career at Walt Disney Imagineering, the division of the Disney company that is a creative driving force behind the theme parks, resorts, cruise ship lines, and so forth. Tim Delaney was a vice president of design and creative director that led his teams in the design of Disney theme park episodes or theme park projects throughout the world. With over $2.5 billion of completed projects that span from California to Orlando, Paris, Hong Kong, and Shanghai, Tim Delaney was a project designer and show producer for all his attractions, and led his teams by taking them from the preliminary concept phase through development and construction, and ultimately to the project's opening day. And the list of what he worked on is long. The Living Seas Pavilion, Discoveryland at Disneyland Paris, Tomorrowland at Hong Kong, Paradise Pier at DCA, Disney Resort Concepts and Hotels, Aulani in Hawaii, Space Mountain at Paris Disneyland, and he was also involved in some early Epcot Center concept development when he and my dad were wandering around WED Enterprises on Flower Street as youth, shall we say. So Tim is an amazing fellow. I'm very happy that I got a chance to see him and shake his hand once more. And this was a very, very sweet moment. The audience was, or the panel was talking about all the work that went into bringing the Living Seas to fruition. And it was just a fine, fine moment as the two Imagineers were on stage and they were both complimenting each other. It was very touching. So I'm happy for that moment. Here's a few great pictures of some early concepts from the Living Seas that they showed on screen. And yeah, this is the famous Oceans magazine as well. Okay, so I think we're getting near the end. Oh no, we're not getting near the end. We just passed lunch. And we had some of our friends back on stage, including Tom Nabby, and he was joined by a bunch of folks, Steve Case, Bruce Fox, Ted Meebert, and Bob Woodham, to tell tales of opening the Walt Disney World monorail system. And they told some amazing, amazing stories of how this was brought to life. My apologies. I think one of them couldn't make it. So they had, who was it? It was Dr. Gloria Hardy up on stage to talk about her experiences bringing the monorail to life as well. Some great pictures. For example, this was an advertisement. This says, "Hey folks, there are a bunch of job doors opening up because there's going to be a bunch of people needed to drive these monorails around the property." Some of you may not know, but the actual rails that were built that have an arch attached to them, like this one, they were actually constructed near me in Tacoma, Washington. And so they had to be moved all across the country to Orlando on these giant trucks. There was one story told that one of the trucks, I guess, either tipped over or had an accident or something in the snow. And so one of these beams was actually lost. So they had to create another one and send it across the country. So maybe somewhere there's a monorail beam out there. And of course, they told the intrepid stories of some people walking the beam. Yes, believe it or not, some of our Imagineers had to, or chose to, as I shall say, in order to get more quickly from one hotel or one resort to the other. They realized that maybe some fences were closed during the day, and their best option to get quickly to the other resort was by monorail, but not monorail, because there was no monorail there. So they actually walked the beam. And they told some great stories about how the beam, it looked, 18 inches looks a lot bigger when you're in the station versus when you're out on it hundreds of feet high. So it was a fantastic story. Oh, they also showed a great video of Bob Hope. Bob Hope was conveyed in the monorail to give a little song at the Contemporary, and you could probably recognize these orange trees in the back. And I can credit my father for those. He's the guy who envisioned the original orange plastic trees in the Contemporary Resort we all know and love. But this was a wonderful video of Bob Hope getting out there and singing some and telling some funny jokes, or not so funny, as the case may be. Finally, we get to acknowledge Mr. Tom Morris. This section was called Tom Morris's Excellent Adventure. And Tom's an amazing, amazing guy. And I'm so grateful he was invited to come up on stage and talk about his experiences. Let me read his bio real quick. Tom is a former creative development executive at Imagineering who guided groundbreaking projects for over 30 years. Highlight projects include the original Journey into Imagination at Epcot Center, the conceptualization of Disney Quest, and Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith at Walt Disney World, the design of Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland Paris, overall creative oversight for Hong Kong Disneyland Resort, and conceptual direction for Cars Land at Disney California Adventure Park at Disneyland Resort. I know everybody in chat loves Cars Land, especially the visual design of it. So Tom was involved in that. And honestly, let me just take a moment and just express how much you just lose your breath, just realizing the breadth and depth of work that these amazing people have worked on. So not only being able to get to meet them, but to be in the same room as these people is just pure catnip for Disney fans like us. So I'm so grateful to Retro WDW and the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society for pulling this off. And these were some old pictures that Tom brought along. This was a great clip. Dream fulfilled. Daily Pilot newspaper boy Tom Morris, 12, Newport Beach, saved his paper route money towards one of his big days of his life, a one-day plane trip to the opening day celebrations at Walt Disney World in Florida. He is shown in front of Cinderella Castle with one of the Disney characters. And here's a picture of Tom with Hal, talking about some of his great stories. Oh, Tom actually brought some amazing renderings too, by the way. These were, let me just flip briefly through these because the elevations that he showed were just phenomenal. These were, of course, you may recognize illustrations from Liberty Square. And I believe this one was from Herbie Ryman, early concept sketch of the Haunted Mansion. Yeah, I mean, just the amount of detail Herbie we'll talk about Herbie more, and we have talked about Herbie, but we'll talk about Herbie much more in coming episodes. And here's some great pictures from early days. Dick Irvine, I don't know if I could read this, WED's vice president in charge of design, discusses preliminary conceptual models of Disney World's theme park with 3 project designers, Bill Martin left, John Hench, second from right, and Bob Brown. Hench stands behind a larger model of the model. So we've talked about John Hench a lot on this show, and it's great to see some of the early pictures. By the way, I think Tom mentioned that every one of the cards up on the wall behind them, you could probably tell hours of stories about each of them. It's to be a fly on the wall, right? Some great illustrations. Todd, I see your message. Thank you so much for coming here. I'm going to continue supporting you guys in your awesome work, and I'm really grateful for what you pulled off. Some wonderful illustrations of the contemporary. At first, we thought my dad might have rendered these, but in fact, he didn't. But he did render other contemporary paintings that, if you happen to go to Steakhouse 51, they're right outside the entrance. Oh, this was a wonderful sketch. Those of you who have followed me for a little while may know that I've talked about World Showcase quite a bit. And as you can see here, of course, up over here is the original Magic Kingdom, the contemporary. Well, this is where World Showcase was originally planned to be, next to the Polynesian. And you can say, John, that doesn't look like World Showcase. Well, you're not wrong. John Hench's original idea for World Showcase was that of an airport terminal. So you can see these 2 circles kind of together, kind of like an airport terminal. And each wedge would represent a different country that you can go inside and visit. The brilliance of this model was each wedge could be very short or it could be very long, depending on how much the host country supported this effort, i.e. chipped in. So if you chipped in more, you would get a longer wedge. It was a phenomenal idea. Ultimately, it wasn't brought to fruition, but we'll talk about that more in the future with other stories. Here's a color picture of the same. Oh, and a wonderful elevation of it as well. Wonderful picture of Main Street. Again, some great artwork that Tom brought along. And this is Tokyo Disneyland. Originally, you all know that Tokyo Disneyland's Main Street is covered. Well, this was one of the original concepts for Tokyo. I want to get into some of the displays here. The displays out in what they called the Lake Buena Vista room were phenomenal. This was Jimmy Mulligan's table. Again, if you haven't seen Jimmy Mulligan's art, go look him up. He sells stuff online. He's an amazing freaking artist. And the amount of detail and love he puts into each of his paintings is just takes your breath away. They had a long room full of interesting artwork and artifacts. I'm going to go quickly through these because we're running short on time, but you can appreciate some of these original artifacts from the early days. Here's one with the living seas with a scuba diving Mickey. Original one-day passports. Original pictures from Epcot Center's opening day. Here's a diamond horseshoe, Marshmallow Marsh, Fort Wilderness. Here's Treasure Island and Discovery Island, for those of you who remember that. More artwork and original magazines from River Country. Some original artifacts from the monorail. And a great picture of the monorail being lifted up onto the beam. So more pictures from Tomorrowland featuring Space Mountain. Lake Buena Vista Village News, which is great to see some of these artifacts and to read some of the prices, especially back then. Railroad Station, Town Hall and Main Street, looking north. More artifacts from Pins, Disney World. There's a Living Seas booklet. And some of you may remember this model. This was a playground in the Lake Buena Vista area. And they talked a lot about how that playground changed over the years. There's a better view of the model. Some more artifacts. Some Disney dollars. Tickets. I mean, you could spend hours in here. An original sign, some of you may recall. Some wonderful attraction posters. This is a wonderful big scale view of the resort property as it first opened. Oh, I don't know if you notice, but you may notice this little thing in the upper right. You may say, well, what is that? Contemporary's down here. This is where Space Mountain was built. Is that Tron? No, it's not Tron. There was an original Islamic style resort planned, or Persian style resort planned for the original area as well. And they showed some amazing pictures of what that would have looked like as well. So it's great to see that artifact here. More maps of the resort. I'm going to go pretty quick because some of these paintings you've seen. Oh, beautiful painting of the Nautilus. We talked about Horizons last week, and I featured the art here as well. I talked about the artist, and it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. More stuff from opening day. Lots of ticket books, if you can geek out looking at tickets with me. Original guidebooks, pins, stickers, patches, even an LP down there featuring the electrical water pageant. More stuff from the early days. This featured the Tencennial, some of you may recall. More stuff from later days. More guidebooks. Again, there was just rows and rows of this stuff to admire. It was great. And finally, we had some things bookending the attraction, the exhibit. I wanted to highlight Ted Linhart's stuff because Ted is a historian and he brings artifacts with him. And you could see some of these are inside a glass case, but yet you were allowed to pull these out and actually page through them. You can see Lake Buena Vista People Mover. What is that? Well, that was an original concept booklet created for a people mover in Lake Buena Vista. Newark World's Fair documents, things like that. Individual documents for each World Showcase pavilion in Epcot, explaining to the cast members what to do. Ted was fantastic and brought these to the show that you can acknowledge. You can't read it, it's too blurry, but that was a book that says Walt Disney World Village Design Guidelines. We have the Star Jets operating manual, things like that. Oh, before I show that one, I'll go back to it. This is a personal story. I actually ran into a gentleman who had said, oh, you're John DeCure? I'm like, yes. My father's not here this year, but he's here in 2023. Oh, I got some amazing artifacts to show you. And he pulled out this folder. And one of them was, there were two things that blew me away. One of them was original inner office memo from Marty Sklar to my father. And in this memo, he talked about some of the early concepts of Epcot Center. In this case, they called it the Epcot Forum, including things like Dialogue of Man, Telecommunication Center, Future World Forums, Communication Studio, and things like that. John, this is a beginning concept which we should build on. I hope this helps to get us all started on the same track, Marty. So, I mean, what an amazing artifact to bring and to show me. I'm so touched that gentleman, and we traded contact information and talked a little bit. The other amazing thing he brought along, let me come back to that, was this, and I etched out some private information. But this is not my father, this is my grandfather. As you can see here, this was a credit reference form for a auction. And he was clearly doing something for Disney at the time. Dad and I are digging into the archives to figure out what this was all about. But what was also neat was on the back, he had some sketches of Mickey. So I don't know if he was bored one day or if these were related to a particular attraction. I know that he worked on the Mickey Mouse Review, but Dad and I all have to figure all that out. So we have more homework, Dad. And there were some amazing sketches by him in the back. I think this is actually my father. It looks like him. You can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Oh, this is an amazing picture. Towards the end, they had an all hands where they brought up a bunch of Imagineers on stage to just have a chit chat and talk about different topics, like a lightning round. And they showed, I had mentioned the Space Pavilion before on this show. The Space Pavilion is not Mission Space. It is the original Space Pavilion before Horizons was there. And it was envisioned to be a gigantic double-decker, can't think of it, Circle Vision 360 attraction that would rotate around you. So they had some preliminary pictures from here. Some great artwork illustrating what this concept would look like. As you can see, the guests are in their pods on the right side, and you could see over here, this is the big double-decker circle vision camera that would, or screens that would rotate around you. It's pretty neat to think what that could have been. And this is the list of illustrious people up on stage. I wanted to call this out. They had a credit reel at the end, and the first thing they thanked was the Phoenicians. So we got to thank the Phoenicians. And then they dropped this on us. I know some of you are my fans on the West Coast. I'm on the West Coast. And they dropped this. They teased the next RetroMagic, and they didn't say anything about it. They just dropped this image. Yes, it seems very likely that RetroMagic will be coming to California. And I'm super excited about it because we get to invite our West Coast friends to engage in this wonderful event. And hopefully we'll get a bigger mix of Imagineers who may have a hard time going to Orlando. So I'm looking forward to that in a couple years. And I hope my interpretation of this teaser image is correct because I can't wait. Here's a great picture of me with Kim Murphy. I'm so grateful that we were able to meet and touch base. So he's a beautiful, beautiful man. And he said wonderful things about you, Dad, if you're still listening. Oh, I got to show this. This was Kate, our friend, Oodalali Lane, with Todd Tuckey. And what was great about this was they were fooling around. Turns out that they are not far apart. I think Todd's amusement business is not far from Kate. And I think she's visited there before. So we'll have her on sometime to talk about it. So Monday came along. Monday I was invited. I won't say much about this because this was private. But Monday I was invited to go to Universal Studios with some illustrious people, some amazing people that you may have seen on stage. I won't name drop, but we had a phenomenal day. I won't go much into detail about it because it was a private day and we had a lot of fun. And I actually got some amazing advice and insight from them on what to do for this show for Grand and Miraculous. So I look forward to incorporating their advice and to talking about that in the future. But I just wanted to highlight this. This is the Epic Universe Preview Center. And I talked about models earlier. This was an amazing model. I hope they keep this in some form. We were just all agog staring at it and just seeing how amazing the details were. So if you're ever at Universal Orlando, go check us out. It's great. And the amount of detail is phenomenal. Again, it's just a fantastic model. And I just wanted to highlight a few key experiences. I had actually, believe it or not, never been to Universal Orlando. I've been to Universal LA many times. But for me, it was the first time to see some of these indoor experiences. And can I just say, the ride in the Gringotts section completely blew me away. Not only for the ride itself, which was great, but for the entrance. The entrance is immaculate and so much detail. This was the entry hall. They not only had one chandelier, they had multiple chandeliers. And they had the goblins on the side doing their thing. I know this is old hat for those of you who have been to Orlando many times, but this just completely blew me away in terms of theming, immersion, and I look forward to talking about this more in a future episode. This was the exit to the shop, and just some amazing stuff in there. This was Hogwarts, and I didn't know that this was actually a show. I just thought it was a little train that took you back and forth like in Animal Kingdom, but no, this show is phenomenal. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't been on that train. Highly, highly recommend visiting Universal. And yes, I'm happy to say I did the Velocicoaster. And I don't know if I'll do it again, but it was a phenomenal ride. It is much, much more intense than I anticipated. I mean, I should have known it from the look of it. I look at it and you get dizzy. But it's a fantastic ride. If you like roller coasters at all and you have a strong heart, definitely go on it. It's a great ride. And I wanted to highlight this finally. In the tribute store, they had a poster here. And we looked up there and like, hey, one of those names looks familiar. That poster says Opening Night Gala Event, guest speaker, Professor Elias Baxter. So Tony was with us. I don't think it's too much of a spoil to say that. And we beckoned him over, and we got a great picture. I'm not going to share her, but we got Tony to pose in front of this. Turns out that this poster was actually created by one of the Imagineers, or the creative people at Universal. I know they're not called Imagineers, but he did it as a little tribute to Tony. So it was fantastic to be able to get his picture, and I'm sure that'll circulate and find its way to the original designer. So that was our trip. I want to thank everybody for bearing with me and sharing some of these stories and memories. Like I mentioned, some of the things I learned through this experience will definitely reflect themselves through the show and through our future episodes. And I got some great feedback and advice on the 3 dimensions that we use to evaluate attractions. As you may know, if you watched previous episodes, we talk about immersion, we talk about storytelling, and we talk about delight. We may tweak those over time. So we'll talk about it in the future, and we'll try and figure out what set of axes or what set of dimensions really work to determine if these attractions truly are high quality attractions or not. Oh, one more picture. This was the Poseidon area. Those of you who follow theme park news probably know that this attraction is closed. They're going to put something here. Don't know what it is, but I was able to get a picture of this while the walls were down. It's phenomenal architecture. If you haven't seen it, I'll miss it when it's gone. So what are we going to do? Next week, we're going to cover World of Motion. I figured it would be all appropriate, since we talked about Horizons, to just wander next door and talk about the amazing pavilion that was next door to Horizons called World of Motion. Of course, this was a Ward Kimball masterpiece. There were so many great maquettes, animatronics, and storytelling techniques used in this attraction, and I'm really looking forward to tearing this apart with you. So before I go, I just want to highlight and see if there's any other folks who wandered in. I don't see anybody, but if I missed you, oh, I see some folks. Spooky Aurora. Hey, thanks for coming here. I appreciate it. But if I missed you, I love you. Thank you for being here in the chat, and thank you for contributing to our brand new threshold for Grand and Miraculous. We have almost 450 subscribers. So again, if you like what we talk about on this channel, please hit like, please hit subscribe, share out the stream, and we look forward to covering more attractions with you in future episodes. So for now, I'll end as I usually do with Ray Bradbury's coda. Gather round the next great campfire. Let us seek and know and understand and dream a new book, a new instruction book to fly great spaceship Earth through the uncharted seas of the future world. Lock in a dream that is your own. Find what truth is in your blood and beat a path from there to here. Your life is yours to own and be. The world is yours to shape and change. The stars are yours as just a reward. Thank you for being here through this very special episode. Thank you to the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. Thank you to Retro WDW. It was a phenomenal event, and I would highly encourage you to go support those folks. Nightbot's been dropping the link in chat, and look forward to what they have, what other rabbits they will pull out of their hat in future events. So for now, I wish you all a great week, and we'll be back next week to talk about World of Motion. Thanks again. Have a great week.